Okay, so does anyone have questions um, pertaining to their practice? Any recent things I've said in videos or stuff that's just going on in your lives? And we'll take it from there. Oh, good to see you, Jinhua.
I missed a few sessions,
Yeah,
but I'm still around.
nice, nice.
Ryan, do you have any suggestions for uh practice off the cushion, just during the day, um normal interaction with people and being out, you know, business in the community and stuff?
Yeah, it depends what you're doing. So like if you're working on it depends what your practice is or what your where your focus is. So if it's non-duality, for example, or you want to enter you're moving towards that first initial shift that I discussed in the last class, then you'd want to do you'd want to do mode two um, as often as you can. And I don't mean like you be obsessive with it and use a bunch of force, but I mean every time that you can remember or as much as possible, you're just noticing yourself. You're observing yourself. Bodhidharma was asked directly, um, so what is one to do outside of sitting meditation? And he just said, just observe yourself continuously. And by observing yourself, he means uh, that mode two practice. It doesn't mean like criticizing or analyzing every single
Mm.
thought that you have, but it just means actually applying awareness. Uh, yeah, applying awareness, and in Zen they call it looking back, right? So you're looking at your mind, the way that attention is usually directed outward at objects and at things. You have you have your attention to a degree directed internally, even though you're still talking to people and going about your day and doing things to the best of your ability, be in noticing or be in awareness. Initially, that is not an easy thing to do. So initially, you find that you know you're really not aware most of the time at all, or even 10% of the time. Your mind is usually in narratives. So all that you're introducing is an element of observation. You're introducing an element of noticing and of witnessing what is happening, what you're thinking. So in my case, I'm on a Dhammakaya meditation retreat, right? So the object for me is the is a visual object, so a mental picture, and I attempt to notice that mental picture all the time, like
Can you
from
give
the
me an
moment.
example of a mental picture that you're
Uh,
observing?
yeah, in this technique, you use a sphere, like a crystal sphere, or a point of light, like a star, and you place it inside your abdomen, and that's what you meditate on. So initially, that object is something that you generate, and then after some time, a more refined object or a more refined mental image emerges from it that does not have to be sustained anymore. Like you don't have to create it. All you have to do is direct your attention to it, and it'll be there. So in Buddhism, these are called nimittas. They Nimitta means mental sign or mental object, and these become the basis for uh, deepening deepening in one's meditation. So one of the obstacles is the internal, like the data coming in from the senses is very apparent, or it's very it takes up a lot of attention. So it's like if you're meditating and you hear a loud sound abruptly, your attention goes to that immediately. It's similar the data that's coming in, the information that's coming in from all the sense fields. So the reason people use meditation objects is because eventually there's a like a unification with that object and a lessening of the noticeability of the information coming in from the sense fields. So then your awareness becomes more continuous. So this is just an example of that. But it just depends what you're doing because objects are not they're not particularly necessary. I'm doing a practice where it's necessary, but in your in your regular, yeah, it just depends what your practice is. For example, if you're doing loving kindness, you want to be doing loving kindness all the time. What does that mean? It means that as much as you can, you're actually radiating the feeling of loving kindness to everybody. So, and if you're sitting there on the couch and there's no one around, you're just radiating it into space. So you're always like, what does it mean to radiate loving kindness? So when you, the lines from the Metta Sutta or the loving kindness discourse are, may all beings be happy. That's one of them. So there's a purity from the wish for all beings to be happy. Like when you wish for other people to be happy, there's there's a love inside that is part of that sincerity. That feeling is what begins to accumulate, and that feeling of love and kindness is what you begin to allow to radiate outwards, or you direct it outwards.
Okay.
Yeah. So in that practice, you do that all the time. So it just depends what your main practice is.
Well, as far as observing your mind states, I mean, there's probably different levels of mind states, right? I mean,
Yes.
say emotions and tranquility and turmoil and right. And so I guess in the beginning doing this practice, would you say there's a variety of mind states which you observe, and some of them you may get into, say, frustration or anger or whatever, and you lose the observation, like you're just so
Yeah.
into, say, driving or something, right? Um, so, what would you say that the ability to inquire in the mind state, there's different levels according to how deep your awakening is, your realization.
Would I say that there's depth or there's levels of mind?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like every level is mind. Let's just be clear about that, you know. Every level
Right.
is mind. There's just different strata of mental experience and mental content. So the more that the observation or the witnessing becomes prominent, you'll find that there's more specific characteristics or qualities that begin to mature. So in Buddhism, there's a set of qualities that are very conducive to awakening. They're called the seven factors of enlightenment. And they mature as a result of mindfulness, which is noticing, right? Being aware. One of them, for example, is tranquility. So another is equanimity. So the more you do this, or the more you're in witnessing and the more you're in surrendering, the more that the dualistic and uh, normal patterns that you're in begin to lose their hold. It may take time, right? Um,
Okay.
but the idea is that as this witnessing and really letting go and taking the back seat becomes more prominent, you find that these particular qualities become more mature. So you have more equanimity, more tranquility. You notice that reactivity reduces a bit. It doesn't necessarily mean that it goes away completely, but you do generally notice that there are certain qualities and aspects of mind that are now accumulating or increasing.
Okay, you say taking the back seat, you mean observing then?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. And you won't always be able to observe them, like you said, right? Like you're gonna get frustrated, you're gonna get distracted, you're gonna get annoyed, right? That's all gonna happen. But you find that there's more of this element of just witnessing that becomes prominent. And as that element increases, there becomes more freedom from thought. Not freedom from, not necessarily freedom from, the degree of thought may still be the same. You still may notice that you're thinking quite a bit initially, but there's greater freedom from the reactivity related to thinking. So you do witnessing for a month, you do this noticing for a month, but it may take daily practice. And after a month, you find, oh, this one thing used to annoy me a lot every time I thought about it or every time I remembered it. And now you're noticing it's down like, or your reactivity to that is down 50%. Yeah. So that's a very practical example of that. Um, as the witnessing increases and your surrender increases and your non-reactivity increases, then this like deeper nature becomes more emergent and you start to experience awakening, or you start to notice more. It's like, oh yeah, certain concepts begin to make more sense. Because right now, or for for many of us, we're like locked into thinking and feeling. Like that's it. That's
Right.
all that exists is thinking and feeling, narratives, reactivity. I feel this, I think that, I need to do this, I need to do that. Like that is our whole reality. Witnessing and noticing and being aware and surrendering and watching is like over here. So we're living here and our practice is developing something that's over here. So
Right.
the more that this is developed, there actually begins to initially there's space, right? You actually begin to feel like there's space from what you're thinking and feeling. Finally, thank God, right? And at some point, the awakening deepens or the process deepens, and there begins to be things like the loss of separation or very deep presence, uh, deep contentment. But these all come out of essentially surrender and the presence itself. Yeah.
Okay, this is very helpful. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else? David, let's see if anyone else wants to go first, and then I'll pick you, and then you can go after. Okay, Julie.
On the 2nd of February, you talked about unity consciousness, just in passing as like a byproduct of noticing awareness. Can you hear me? Okay. And I was fascinated with that. I've been having glimpses of unity consciousness, maybe, and I wanted to see if you could spend a couple minutes just talking a little bit more about, how unity consciousness might arise. I guess I'll stop there.
Yeah, that's great. What in the glimpses or the openings that are occurring, what would you say is happening?
Like with kind of like with boundlessness, when I'm doing a specific meditation where you go through the heart and back out through the backside, and you suddenly have this more spacious feeling, and you're not sure where your body ends and something else begins. And you have or like if you're trying to trace the space between your fingers, suddenly your body will go away, kind of, you just don't know where it is. And so you have I have a different like perception when I'm sitting there. I can't carry it outside of the meditation spot, really. Although sometimes I once in a while I'll get it where I'm out in nature or something.
Yeah, so one of the first things that begins to happen with the onset of unity is what you described, which is boundlessness. So you begin to lose the barriers between objects, or the barrier between your body and the environment. It becomes gradually uh, transparent. So before, maybe when you first started meditation, or many years ago, whatever, you had the clear sense that like you're here and everything else is out here. That is what starts to uh, disappear in unity. So when the glimpses happen, when the glimpses occur, remember to orient towards them and to rest in them, not in the way that you're like trying to recreate that state or keep it going, but just that you're noticing, or your attention is now put in that direction, and it can allow it to unfold further. So for example, if you're going boundless and you have the sense that you're now beginning to expand and expand and expand, you don't need to contract back into the body because the instructions say so. So that's a departure from a lot of how the classical approach is taken, because they don't want you to start chasing states, chasing experiences. So on one hand, don't chase and don't attach to those openings, but on the other, also like nurture them. They're seeds in a way. So for unity, mm, like, yeah, onset characteristics are boundlessness, transparency. So you start to feel like you're dissolving, or your body's dissolving,
Yeah.
or what what seemed to be so solid is suddenly not as solid. So I have the kind of perception that the objects around me are not solid, and that started in unity. So these types of perceptual changes that will actually characterize the rest of your awakening, they begin uh, at this particular door. Why is unity so important? Uh, because it's really the first shift dramatically away from the personality focus. Even in unity consciousness, uh, that kind of non-duality, there tends to still be personality. Like, you still have your reactions, you have the things that you want and the things that you like and whatever. It's not like this huge blowout, but you do notice that you do notice this undeniable change that has happened or that is happening. And with that change comes the same transparency that is occurring in the objective field will occur to the subjective field, supposed subjective field. So the transparency that is being perceived in objects, it'll begin to be perceived with your sense of self. Yeah, that's why unity. That's why unity is a first awakening for many people. It's like the first zoom out from the personality structure and narrative. Before meditation, before awakening, you never had this sense of boundlessness. You never had this boundless love thing. You never had this, connectivity with the field type of sense. That all wasn't there before. Now it's becoming evident. Now it's becoming apparent. So meditations that open boundlessness, and open the sense of unity are loving kindness and devotional practices also serve that function. When you do mode 2, for example, and you're just noticing awareness, um, the reason that can open unity is because it it gradually dawns, or it gradually makes it very clear that self-awareness, consciousness is ever present and continuous. When that becomes clear, that consciousness or reality is really uninterrupted, it's really continuous, it's actually there all the time, there's this opening or emergence of an intuitive sense or a knowledge that everything is consciousness. Like nothing you touch, nothing you see, nothing you feel is outside of yourself. This is the perception that you start to have. That the people walk, like people walk into a room and you don't know where they came from, but now suddenly they're in your field of perception. There can almost be a sense, or there actually can be a sense, that things don't exist outside of your sphere of perception, because you don't actually know if things exist outside of your sphere of perception.
Right.
So yeah, so these types of intuitive things become pretty evident. I would say the first thing to look for, or thing to kindle unity, is loving kindness. Yeah. When unity happened to me, it happened from the heart. It was a heart thing. I read Ramana Maharshi, Liberations to Know You're Never Born. A day later, it felt like my chest cracked open and unity consciousness occurred. So yeah, loving kindness and the boundlessness that is practiced from that radiation of goodwill and love to everyone and to all beings, that um, yeah, that will cause glimpses of unity for sure. Yeah. So how do you move from glimpses to permanency? The only way to move from glimpses to persistence is through insight. So there's a relationship between non-dual experiences, or openings, insight, and realization. So many of us have had non-dual experiences, right? They could happen on psychedelics, plant medicine. They can even happen in extreme sports. So in extreme sports, like racing or whatever, um, the the conditions are set up so that you have to be present. If you're not present, you could die. So it really forces your mind into the present moment. And by having the mind forced into the present moment, what do people usually describe? They say nothing existed except that moment. There wasn't a me, you know, I wasn't directing things. So in these types of experiences, the conditions cause us to lose ourselves in what is happening. And when you lose yourself in what is happening, that's a non-dual experience. You go so deep into the present moment, the conditions force your mind so deep into the now that you lose yourself into the now. So this happens in many instances. It can happen in romantic relationships, interactions. It even happen just like walking in the woods. You suddenly feel this massive clarity, or this incredible oneness. That's an experience. Lasts a few seconds, few minutes, maybe a few hours, maybe a few days. So in a non-dual experience, the reason um, that these can come and go is because they're generally produced by conditions. So in plant medicine, when you have you experience unity consciousness or some kind of non-duality, but then the trip ends and you revert back to your ordinary sense of self. Why does that happen? It's because it was chemicals and spiritual forces and energies that were acting as the condition that supported that non-duality. Same thing with meditation retreats. Why is this stuff so much more accessible when you haven't talked for 5 days? It's because when your mind is much more silent or when your mind is very silent and you're not doing anything else, there's a deeper immersion into the now, and then all of this opens up. So experiences can come or go. The reason that experiences generally don't click into persistent awakening is because an experience has to be sufficiently deep for a shift in understanding to happen. An experience has to be sufficiently deep for insight to occur. So in my case, right, with unity consciousness, what was the thing that made it persistent? What was it that changed my life forever? It actually wasn't the immense love that began pouring out of my heart center. It actually wasn't the boundlessness with everyone on the freeway, or the fact that I only had to sleep 2 hours a night, or the fact that I was almost uninterruptedly present and couldn't use my left brain to process loans for over a week. That wasn't what was the most profound. You would think that that's the most profound thing, to like actually have this oneness with God, that alone is the most profound thing. What the most profound thing was that I could no longer believe I was a person. That was, I woke up from the dream of Ryan. That's what made it persistent. So that's what makes it awakening. The experience was so deep that there was an insight, and the insight was, oh, I've always been consciousness. I've always been reality. There's only been reality, but consciousness was identifying as a person. I've been dreaming my entire life. Like everything that I wanted, everything that I pursued, everything that I tried, they were just the products of thoughts and feelings and conditioning and beliefs and whatever. And these 10 days were so quiet that I saw that my former self was just a dream. It wasn't real. It was like a garment that the I am or the consciousness put on. So that insight is what produces, or what allows for realization to occur. So the insight, wow, I'm not a body, I'm not my thoughts, I'm not my feelings. All of those things come and go, but this consciousness, this reality itself is persistent. So I can't possibly be the thoughts and feelings. And that is the first freedom of awakening. At least in my case, it was. So even when that big opening of stillness and of really like just bliss, even when that vanished, what couldn't vanish is what became clear. Like I couldn't go back to my former to conviction in my former identification. Even though all the patterns emerged back up, my sense of self returned, I was just as lost and confused as I was, before the awakening. But there was now this seed of like, you're not actually Ryan. So that seed gradually matures, and then you have more glimpses that then begin to stabilize. But the whole point is that in the glimpse or in the opening, there can be a deepening of understanding, and it's that understanding that results in realization. So you find that reality consciousness has always been the case. It's always been persistent. It's always been immediate. There's actually no path to reality. There's no path to reality. Reality is right now. It's all the time. Ever present, immediate. There is no path to this. So what is the path in regards to? The path is in regards to understanding. Reality has always been the case. We didn't know it. Consciousness has always been the case. We didn't know it. And then at some point we begin to know it. That is the deepening of understanding. That is wisdom. That is insight. That is realization. What has been evident, what has been true all along becomes known. Did that capture the question? Yeah.
That was so great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so
Yes.
much.
You're welcome. Yeah. So this trifecta of experience, insight, and realization, it actually gets surprisingly it gets overlooked. So because technically, right, you could have all these experiences of no self and all these experiences of unity. They can happen, a lot of people experience bliss, immense bliss and ecstasy in meditation. That's all, these are all not normal things for ordinary people and ordinary consciousness. It's not normal to feel like you're dissolving into space and that bliss is flowing up your spine. That's like not a thing that most people describe. But it's not those experiences themselves that liberate. It's the understanding that liberates. It's the wisdom that liberates. The truth sets you free, right? You see, ah, it's always been this. Yeah. Yeah, good question, Julie.
Thanks.
Yeah, keep it up. David?
Yeah, no, I'll probably just text you privately because it's something personal, and
Okay.
yeah, I might just want to get your input,
Yeah.
privately.
Anything else besides that that's not particularly private?
No, it's just practice oriented, something that happened and it's got me rattled. So
Okay. Okay, good.
I got a question, Ryan.
Yep.
I read something from Ajay last night, and he said, "Don't try to just dissolve anything," and that that stopped me because that's my practice. It's just whatever's showing up in the chest, or it's probably an emotion. I just try to dive into it and just try to meet it. And then when he said that, I'm like, oh, okay. So now what?
Yeah, so with my the three modes that I teach, there's mode 1, there's mode 2. So mode 1 is any practice where you're noticing an external object like the breath or anything where the direction of attention is this way. And self-inquiry, the direction of attention is this way. You're looking at this. In mode 3, you just drop all doing. You don't do anything anymore. So the reason that stopped you, or that felt like what, there's a recognition there, whoa, it means that the non-doing, or the letting go of intention or volition is emergent or it's now, that's something that will begin to blossom, or a direction. It's not even a direction, honestly. uh, mo Meditation, for the most part, especially in the beginning, is a doing. You know, we're trying to do things to awaken. We're doing specific practices, listening to teachers, going on retreats, and that's all fine and necessary. But at a certain point, your mind is gonna want to stop. Like, you're gonna have this sense that, like, ah, like, everything that I'm doing is directed at a goal. Everything that I'm doing is directed at an outcome in time, which is awakening. And when you release that movement for an outcome, you really see and you become the uh, immediacy of the present moment. Yeah, so that like going into the heart, or that going into anything, it's still directed at something, right? It's still like, I'm going through this to arrive at wherever, at awakening or at deepening. Um, but by abandoning movement, abandoning volition, abandoning intention, by letting go, even of letting go. Letting go is still an action. That's still a doing. It's a dropping. Abandonment is still an action. Um, so all of that falls away, and there's just this.
So if I were to sit in mode 3, and then something appears, say like sadness or something.
You don't do anything about it.
Okay.
Yeah. You don't go into it. You don't move. So your attention may go into it anyways, right? Like, it will emerge, or it'll come up, like sadness or pain, and you'll feel it, or it'll be felt. But the idea in mode 3 is to really just not do anything. You're not avoiding anything, and you're not pulling anything towards you. Yeah, you can investigate the sadness in a subsequent session, but when you're really in the non-doing, a good word is uncontrivance. So there's just no asserting, there's no attempting, uh, there's no interference or directing of what is happening, or of the present moment. It's actually something that beginners can't do. If you ask a beginner to sit down and do nothing, they can't do it. They're like, what does that even mean? And you tell them to do nothing, and they just daydream the whole time. So the daydreaming is still doing something. You're still listening, and at least willfully daydreaming, right? Like, some fantasy comes up, and now you're like actually planning what you need to do tomorrow. That's not it. You just so the idea is to just in mode 3, you be aware, you're not doing anything. Your mind will go into distraction, it'll start doing stuff, and then you notice awareness will return, and then you just rest again in this non-doing. Yeah, it's like, to get a feel for it, actually, you can do this exercise with your finger. I learned this from Bruce Moen, who is from the Monroe Institute. He wanted to get very clear on what intention actually is. And so the exercise he devised to get clear on the nature of intention was this exercise he called the little finger, where you use your intention to curl your finger all the way until it's as curled as possible. And then you release the intention, and you notice that the finger just uncurls on its own. and then you push on the intention lever again to curl the finger. So this helps you do this for as long as you need to. Maybe some of you get it right off the bat. You don't need to do the exercise. I know what intention is, okay? But this helps you get clear on what I mean by the exercising of intention and the absence of intention. So right now I'm not intending at all anything with my finger. Now I'm intending. So this helps us get clear on what intention is as a mental formation, as an actual phenomena in mind. So when you're in non-doing, you have released intention completely.
Cool.
Yeah. Some of you are like, what the heck? What is that? What does it mean? What does it even mean to be free of intention? Yeah, so that's something that becomes evident from the practice. Yeah, the difficulty with mode 3 is that unless the mind is already like somewhat calm or tranquil, when you try to do nothing, there'll just be, you know, endless cycles of content. So usually once you're over the 5 hindrances, or if you already feel particularly like you're already in noticing or you're already in witnessing, you're already familiar with awareness, you've done mode 2 quite a bit, then you go into mode 3 and you drop awareness. You don't try to be aware anymore. So the thing that has taken you through all of these stages of practice, all of these cycles of insight, which is the application of awareness and attention, in mode 3, you drop trying to be aware. You don't do anything. And you notice, of course, there's naturally present awareness, but that's not something that you're making happen. So that's a difference. Yeah, the reason mode 3 is so effective.
Hey guys.
Where'd that come from? Oh, okay. I just heard someone say, "Hey guys." Was that you? That was from you, John?
No,
Oh,
not
that
me.
that was from me. Must have my speaker on. Sorry.
Oh, hey, Michael. Okay.
Hey, sorry about that. I was
Okay,
just calling to my dog.
I
Sorry.
got you.
Sorry.
Okay. The reason mode 3 is so profound is because it's the total abandonment of self. It's the total abandonment of me, of directing, of controlling, of trying. Mode 3 is not trying. You're not trying anything. That's why, I mean, I don't even want to say it's powerful. It's just reality. Yeah. Things that were not evident, they can become evident in any mode, but I'd say the gem of mode 3 is the absence of volition. You just let go.
How long should I try this for until I realize, oh, this is not working, and I go back to other modes?
It's a good question. 5 or 10 minutes. Yeah. You'll notice, like, if mode once mode 3 takes, like, you may pop out of it, like the awareness is continuous on its own for a while, and then a thought comes up, and then you're aware continuously. The awareness is continuous on its own for a while, and the thought pops up. So that's fine, actually. So what you want to avoid, though, is, like, if you're just sleepy and you're daydreaming, for example, like, don't do mode 3 when you're sleepy and you're daydreaming, because then you're just gonna fall asleep. Yeah. If you're sleepy and you're daydreaming, just, like, get up and walk in awareness, Mode 3 is a really good practice with walking. Just make sure you're not doing anything else, like using your phone. You'll find it harder if you're having a conversation while you're walking, but just just walk for 15 or 20 minutes or however long without a aim, without a goal, without trying to do anything specifically. You just walk. And yeah, you can all give that a try. Because when you do mode 3 in sitting meditation, if the tranquility or the presence of awareness isn't already stable to some extent, then you just get sleepy. Yeah, get sleepy or yeah, start getting caught in thought content. So a way to try it is start with mode 2, and then just at some point when you feel relaxed enough, just like completely let go. And if after 5 minutes or 10 minutes you sense some sleepiness setting in, put in some intention or volition back into just alertness and noticing. And if that doesn't work, just go back to a mode 2 practice or get up and walk. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. I mean, you'll notice this one in meditation as well. Like, how often do you actually, how many seconds in a day do you actually spend really not doing anything? I mean, not exercising intention, not trying, not analyzing, not shifting attention here or shifting attention there. How much time do we actually spend in like pure resting beingness? Almost none. I mean, even a lot of meditation is doing, right? How often do we actually get into the place of meditation where just witnessing is happening? Not directing anything, not controlling anything, not attempting anything, not moving, just pure witnessing. It's really not common. If you've been meditating for some time, yes, it's more common, right? If you're in unity, yes, it's more common. But I mean, for even in my case, even after unity, I was attempting to get back there, so that wasn't it. You know, I was trying to get back to that boundlessness, and what I should have really done, what I should have done, or what would have been apparent, someone had pointed it out. Like if a student came to me and was going through the same thing, I would have, and I have said, let it go. They're like, no, I can't let it go. It's incredible. Like this is the most important. This is the most profound thing that's ever happened in my life. It's like, yeah, let it go. Because reality is not something you attain. This immediacy of all this is not something that we attain. It's not something that comes or goes. So whatever comes or goes, you can release it. The boundlessness, the bliss, the feeling of like primordial safety, you know? In these levels, whatever you're holding on to, let it go. And when it's released, when all holding on is released, that which is that which cannot be held becomes evident. You can't actually hold experience. You can't actually hold consciousness or reality. Yeah, the reason I say there's no path to reality or there's no path to immediacy is because every single path is reality. Every single meditation technique you try is reality. Every single state of deepening that you enter is reality. Every single level of awakening that occurs is reality. So whatever opening is happening, so then the question now is, well, on one hand you're telling us to notice and bask in the glimpses, on the other you're telling us to let it go. By let it go, I mean like relax your attachment. You know, relax and let go of this caging or this attempting to make it yours. Let that go. But of course, you want to make time and you want to, um, in a way, nurture an opening when it happens. What's an example of that? Let's say you have a certain level of busyness in your life or a certain level of engagement in thinking and activity, and a big opening comes. What you'd want to do is, if possible, like not be as busy during that time, or really make more time for meditation and more time for prayer, more time for being and noticing, and more time for witnessing. You know, it's not every day that uh, you receive these like grace openings. So when they do come, and they are periodic initially, when they do come, you make time for them because it's in that time that the deepening of insight can occur. And with the deepening of insight, realization is possible. You know, it doesn't mean you need to completely rearrange your life. You know, that's not what I'm saying, but it does mean that when a glimpse is happening or an opening is occurring, that you're not ignoring it. You know, we're always like in extremes. So there's a difference between ignoring something and not. You know, these aren't the same thing. So to ignore something would to be an opening happens and then you just binge watch some show for 3 days and then and then you and no insight was gained. That's what I mean by ignoring. But the releasing of attachment, letting it go, just means surrendering it. And often you find when you surrender it, that makes the ego, that makes the self even more transparent. And the process can deepen even further. At every single stage in this process, the question or the thing to ask, one of the things to ask is, am I being asked to let go of something? Do I feel there's something to let go of? What's the lesson here? The process of letting go is how the deeper nature, or what I call guidance or higher self, the letting go is opening to the transparency, the holographic emptying that is um, being kindled from these deeper levels of what we are. You know, it's often rejected in non-duality that there's a thing called destiny, or that there's a thing called purpose, or that that there actually is a thing called guidance. But in my experience of this, I've found that it really is a reality. There actually are levels of consciousness that are unfathomable to ordinary space-time perception, and that the orchestration of synchronicity is an extremely intricate and detailed phenomena. Like, it's not an accident that you ask for one thing. You say, hey, I want to recommit to awakening. I want to recommit to this. I put it on hold. I didn't give it much attention for the last 15, 20 years. And then you start to give it attention again. And then your whole life changes. Like, that is not an accident. The right book showing up at the right time at a place that you weren't even supposed to be in. That is not an accident. This is a mysterious process. It is the holiest of holy things. Of course, it's mysterious. On one hand, it's the most profound thing. On the other, it's the most mundane thing. It's just life. So awakening has its own language that we begin to learn, that we begin to understand and see. It speaks through synchronicity. It speaks through dreams. It speaks through strangeness. It speaks through flashes of intuitive insight. Speaks through impulses. And with our discernment, which is something that, you know, initially may not be totally available, gradually we become more intuitive and more discerning, and we begin to be able to get clearer on what's just mental content and worry versus actual intuition. We begin to understand our own language with that. You know, for me, one of the primary ways that intuition communicates or appears is a um, a persistent impulse, feeling, or even phrase that repeats itself. I don't even want it to be there, but it just keeps coming. And that's how I actually ended up getting out of Burma in time for my dad's funeral. It was because I heard there was an intuitive voice that said, "You need to leave this monastery right now. You cannot stay here. You need to leave. This is go, leave, 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 leave." Had that for like 12 hours. And then I thought, okay, this is really weird. Maybe I should leave. I didn't have my phone because I had my phone, but it was not working because Myanmar at the time, I mean, it's still a communist country, but at the time, T-Mobile and Verizon didn't work there. It does now, but back in 2012, it didn't. So no phone access, no nothing. Got this intuitive sense, followed it, went back to Thailand. Within the hour of landing, my dad fell into a coma. Later that night, I'm on a plane back to the US. 3 days later, he's dead. So there actually is a thing called guidance that is helping you. At least I found that to be the case for me. You know, we attribute different names to it. We say, oh, it's guidance or God or higher self or Buddha or the masters or whatever, the mystery. We give it different names. You know, but part of my particular work was, what is that thing? Like, it's not sufficient that someone just says it's the voice of God. Like, that doesn't mean anything to me, you know? So I wanted to know what it was that was actually guiding this process, and I found my answer to that. So, yeah. Okay, we've gone a little over the hour. We can take a break. Let's come back. Let's reconvene at 7:15, and then we'll get started on our long sit.